Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine.
Picture this. It's 2004, you boot up a game, and within the first 10 minutes you're standing in a train station. No heads-up display popping up to explain anything. No tutorial text on the screen. Just a voice over a loudspeaker telling you to report for processing. No music, just footsteps, echoing announcements, and the quiet dread of a city that's already lost. That's the opening of Half-Life 2, and it tells you everything about what kind of game you're about to play without saying a single word to your face. This wasn't just a sequel. This was a game that rewrote what physics could do in an interactive space, redefined what a weapon could be, and told an entire story without ever taking control away from you. No other shooter at the time was doing this, and honestly, not many since have either. So today, we're going back. We're talking about what still holds up, what hasn't aged so well, and why, 20 plus years later, this is, in my opinion, a perfect 10 out of 10. This is Half-Life 2. Before we get into what makes this game so special, let's set the stage for anybody who hasn't played it. So in this game you play as Gordon Freeman. He's a silent scientist from the original Half-Life who gets pulled out of stasis by this mysterious G-Man, and you're dropped into City 17. City 17 is a crumbling Eastern European metropolis that's under the control of the Combine, which is an interdimensional empire that's conquered Earth in this 7-hour war. And unfortunately, humanity lost, and they lost fast. Gordon links back up with his old allies, Barney, Alex Vance, Dr. Kleiner, Eli Vance, and gets swept into this resistant movement that's fighting to take back the planet. Along the way, you'll escape City 17, you're going to cross into the wasteland, survive the zombie-infested town of Ravenholm, and fight through Combine outposts. And then you'll eventually end up at the Citadel itself to confront Dr. Breen, the human administrator who decided for whatever reason to sell out the species to the Combine. It's a story about resistance, sacrifice, and the cost of survival under an occupation, told entirely through environmental storytelling and in-game engine cutscenes. With zero loading screens to break the immersion. No cutaway cameras, no forced perspective shifts, and you're always Gordon, always in control. With the story out of the way, now let's get into why this game actually feels the way it does. And we're going to start with the atmosphere. This is where Half-Life 2 separates itself from essentially everything else in the genre at the time. City 17 feels like a utopia that's built on top of a prison. The Combine's propaganda, the sterile announcements, the oppressive gray architecture. It's dystopian in this kind of cool classic sense. But Valve dresses it up just enough to make it feel aspirational on the surface, which makes it so much creepier underneath. You're not just fighting soldiers, you're fighting an ideology that's been trying to convince people that everything's fine, everything's normal, and this is the natural progression. And then we get into Ravenholm. Ravenholm is peak Half-Life 2, full stop. The environment shifts from this oppressive sci-fi dystopia into a full survival horror territory. You got headcrab zombies, saw blade traps, the constant tension of, is something around the corner? And the best part is you get to meet Father Grigori. Father Grigori is a shotgun-wielding priest who's been surviving alone in this nightmare, cracking jokes about setting zombies to meet God while he saves your life. The entire sequence is a masterclass in tonal shift without breaking the game's, internal logic. It never feels like a cheap gimmick chapter, it genuinely feels like a different flavor of the same fear. The sound design carries so much of the atmosphere too. The Combine's radio chatter, the ambient hum of City 17 versus the dead silence and the distant zombie moans in Ravenholm. It's perfection. While the environment sets the stage, every play needs actors, and this is where the enemies come into play. The Combine soldiers, the antlions, the headcrabs, the zombies, the striders. Every enemy type in this game feels so cruel in their own specific way. The Combine soldiers are stripped of their humanity, literally and figuratively. They're turned into these puppets. The zombies are unfortunately tragic, more than they are gross. And kind of sad seeing that these once people are basically just shells for headcrabs. The striders are just pure mechanical, unstoppable dread walking on legs. The game is so good, and while there's not a large variety of enemies, there's just enough to make each one of them feel so unique and the environment just pop. This is one of the sections I wanted to kind of slow down a bit on because I don't think people give Half-Life 2 enough credit for its arsenal. This isn't just here's a list of guns because, obviously we have your typical SMG, we have your rifle, we have your shotgun. But this game hands you a bunch of different weapons that tie directly into who Gordon is. The two weapons that I really want to talk about is going to be the crowbar and the gravity gun. The crowbar is obviously Gordon Freeman's mascot weapon. It basically is a callback to the first Half-Life game, and it's super iconic to his identity, and it's super fun. Granted, it's not really powerful or super useful in late game, but it's pretty cool to, utilize it when you don't have any ammo or you just want to break a couple boxes. Now, the gravity gun. The gravity gun wasn't just a fun toy. It was a whole design philosophy. Valve built an entire late game arsenal around pick up the environment and throw it at your enemies. And it fundamentally changed what a weapon could be even in an FPS. It turns every room you encounter into a puzzle and every piece of debris into ammunition. Saw blades, radiators, exploding barrels, even stripped headcrab zombie corpses become a tool. The gravity gun is super important to history. This was one of the first times physics-based interactions was a core mechanic rather than a tech demo gimmick. Games are still chasing this idea today. And while the rest of the arsenal is pretty cool, you have your pulse rifle, the SMG, the underslug grenade launcher, the crossbow, the RPG, the gravity gun and the crowbar, to me, are really the stars of the show. The gravity gun doesn't work without the tech behind it, specifically the engine, and honestly the Source engine was revolutionary. Half-Life 2 launched alongside the Source engine, and the physics simulation was legitimately revolutionary for 2004. The ragdoll physics, the objects interaction, the water simulation, the vehicle physics, it wasn't just eye candy. It was baked into the gameplay and the puzzle design. You're constantly using the environment to solve problems by stacking objects to reach a ledge, using seesaws and pulleys, using the gravity gun to clear debris or, make makeshift bridges with the environment. That puzzle through physics approach was ahead of its time, and arguably it still hasn't been topped. It really made the world feel tactile, like things had real weight and consequence, and there wasn't just scripted cool moments. And the legacy is massive. The Source engine went on to power Portal, Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead, Counter-Strike Source, and who could forget Gary's Mod, which basically was a sandbox and allowed people to take that engine and build whatever they wanted. And kind of speaking on things that Valve trusted the players to figure out on their own, we gotta talk about G-Man. I know this doesn't have much to do with the engine, but this was the best part of the game in my opinion. Every encounter with him in the wild is super unsettling in a way that's kind of hard to replicate. He shows up on TV screens, in the corner of your eye, standing somewhere where logically he shouldn't be, and the game never really explains it. The ambiguity is the horror. You know something is deeply wrong about this figure and his relationship to Gordon, and the game trusts you to sit with the unease instead of spelling it out. That kind of restraint is basically a lost art in modern gaming. Now that we're done talking about the things that worked really well with this game and basically made it revolutionary, we need to talk about some things that I feel like detract from the greatness of this game. Now, I'm not saying these parts are not perfect or these things were poor. I'm just saying they don't really hold up to today's standards, and that's okay. The game's 20 plus years old. For starters, we need to talk about the airboat and car sections. I feel like these sections are my least favorite. It's the only thing that really when I went back to go play this to grab some video, I was dreading because I didn't like these sections at all. The handling is super clunky by modern standards. These things feel heavy, they're floaty, the turning's imprecise, and lining up a jump or threading a tight gap can feel more like fighting the physics engine rather than mastering the vehicle. And on top of that, both sections are just really long and they're kind of drawn out way too long, and I feel like maybe that's done to extend the gameplay. And to be fair, they're not too bad. The airboat has the satisfying mounted gun, the buggy section had some generally cool set pieces, and both do a great job of opening up the world and giving Half-Life 2's environment room to breathe. But when you sit down and you replay the game today, these are the stretches that feel the most dated. The core shooting and physics puzzles from Valve has aged really well. The driving, unfortunately, just hasn't. Half-Life 2 tells a resistance and escape story, and for the most part, it moves. Maybe a little too fast, especially in the back half of this game. Think about how much is set up here. The true nature of G-Man, the full scope of what the Combine actually is doing to Earth, Breen's motivations for collaborating with the alien empire. All of it is teased with real care. The atmosphere sells it, the world building sells it, but the game never quite gives you these threads that kind of pull everything together, and the rest of experience really deserves that. You get to the end and City 17 falls, and it's a huge moment. There's this lingering sense that you just scratched the surface of how much bigger the story could be. Characters and ideas that felt like they were building towards something get resolved in such a rush, or honestly not resolved at all. And honestly, to Valve's credit, this is exactly what the episodic content released after Episode 1 and Episode 2 tried to fix. They slow down, dig into Alex and Eli, into the Vortigoths, into the wider stakes. But taken on its own, the base game leaves you wanting a little, more from the story, a little longer, more fleshed out narrative arc than it actually delivers. And honestly, my least favorite thing about this game are the NPCs. And I don't want to be too harsh, so it's going to be kind of a compliment wrapped around a genuine complaint. The NPC AI in Half-Life 2 was impressive for its time. Allies actually fight alongside you, they take cover, they react to what's happening around them instead of just standing there wanting to be useful. But they can also get in your way. They block doorways, they walk directly in your line of fire mid-fight. In tight corridors, the pathing can get kind of weird. Characters shuffle back and forth, squeezing past you at the worst possible moments. For me, I would say funky would be the right word for it. It's not a huge deal most of the time, more of a minor recurring annoyance than a real problem. But it's noticeable, and it shows up most in the escort style sequences where you actually need an NPC to move predictably and they just don't. So, with all that said, the good, the clunky vehicles, all of it, here's where I land. This is a 10 out of 10. And I want to say that up front because everything after this point is me justifying that number, not building up to it. Here's why it holds up. The atmosphere holds up because it was built on real art direction, not just tech. That's why City 17 still feels oppressive and Ravenholm still gets under your skin 20 years later. The physics hold up because they were never just a gimmick. That gravity gun is still structural to how you actually play the game, not a party trick you use twice and forget. And the gameplay holds up because that same gravity gun still feels more innovative than half the shooters coming out today. But here's the bigger point. Half-Life 2 didn't just influence the industry, it built infrastructure the industry is still standing on. The Source engine alone gave us Portal, Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead, and an entire modding ecosystem. That's not nostalgia talking, that's a direct, traceable line from one game to a huge chunk of what gaming looks like today. Very few games can say that. So yeah, the vehicle section, it is clunky. The story could have used more room to breathe. The NPCs get a little funky sometimes. None of that changes the verdict. This isn't a nostalgic 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 because it still earns it, today, on its own terms. Thanks so much for watching, and I really hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown of Half-Life 2 and why I feel like it still holds up today. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Half-Life 2 or what game you want me to review next. Hit subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.